here. But we got a bunch of special reports next week we're going to be airing that are new. Billy Corrigan, who's a listener, the Smashing Pumpkins. He's also one of the most prolific songwriters out there. Amazing guy. I had a chance to hang out with him a lot in the last 2 days. He's been a listener for years. This interview with Billy Corrigan that we're going to air next week is just mind-blowing. Mind-blowing. The things he talked about. So that's going to come up next week. And we're also, again, going to do a big extended interview. This is just radio here with Ed Haslam today. Darren McBreen's going to do it with all the documents and things to really give you a briefing. And then we'll take a few weeks on that to really get it nice. And then that'll be on the nightly news. I'll do a news, and then now here's a special report. So that's what we plan to do there. We got about 5 minutes left in this segment, 5 minutes, and then after that I'm going to get Jim for you guys to cross over. But tying the two books together and all the bioweapons experts and people that pop up in these reports.
Well, in 2000, I mentioned that 60 Minutes brought me this witness, and I was very interested to meet her and find out what her story really was. And she was... I really had to sit down with her for hours to sort out her story and get her timeline straight in my head. And I finally realized that she could prove that when she was in high school, in a dirt floor laboratory with no budget, that she was giving cancer to mice faster than they were able to do it at the National Cancer Institute. And the American Cancer Society held a press conference, their annual press briefing down in St. Petersburg, Florida, which is right up the road from where this gal lived in Bradenton. And she, lots of moxie, she crashes the American Cancer Society press briefing so that she can tell them about her discoveries. Okay. And while they're about to throw her out, the head of research comes over and says, "Young lady, why are you here?" And she says, "I got this information, And so they let her stay. And when they realize what she is saying, that she is outperforming NCI on this, they say, "We want to go to your laboratory and check it out." And the guy picks up the telephone and calls his buddy, Alton Oshner, who was president of the American Cancer Society some years before, and says, "Alton, get down here. I want you to meet this woman." So Alton comes down with this other guy. And they're all kind of older guys at this point in baggy gray suits, all right? But the three men and Judy get in the car and go to her high school to check this out, okay? And the first thing they do is say, "This is the most dangerous thing we have ever seen. We're shutting your lab down. And secondly, you're coming with us up to Buffalo, New York, so we can train you how to handle cancer-causing viruses properly," all right? And I said, "Judy, who's the third guy? I mean, we got Dr. Dio and Oshner. Who's the third guy?" And she said, his name was Yuri, and he was from the University of Chicago. And he knew a lot about radiation, and that's all I know about him. So I look up Yuri, University of Chicago radiation, and we got Harold Urey, who was the head of the War Sciences program at Columbia during World War II. He starts what becomes the Manhattan Project with Szilard and Fermi, and they all move out to the University of Chicago after the war. So the question is not connecting Yuri to Judy, it's why was Alton Oshner...
Exactly. Stay there. Got to go to break. Ed Haslam's with us for another 20 minutes. Jim Mars will be joining us riding shotgun in the next segment. Thank you for joining us. It is the 15th day of March, 2012. We have former Congressman Bob Barr also popping in at the start of the next hour. You're tying the two books that, by the way, are available in the online video bookstore at Infowars.com, Dr. Mary's Monkey and also Me and Lee. You were tying these two together. Tell us about the book Me and Lee, because you were just tying that together if folks just joined us.
Well, Judy, who wrote this book, wants to be the person that finds the cure for cancer. That's her goal in life. And so she throws herself head and foot into it when she's in high school. And she starts getting help from the military. She's got the documents to prove it. She starts getting...
Well, that was big in the 50s and 60s. My dad was involved in that in high school. And was sitting down to MD Anderson and stuff, but it was across the board. Yeah.
Right, and it was the Whiz Kid program.
Yeah, that was it, yeah.
And so she was part of all that, and she was getting a lot of support, and she was really making progress. So when she goes to this American Cancer Society meeting and they bring in Harold Urey to look at her laboratory, he is with Alton Oshner. This is March of 1961. Okay, that's right when this linear particle accelerator is going on in New Orleans.
How did she have the proof to get the head of the weapons program down there?
She had all of her notes. I mean, she was trained by the woman that was in charge of the local chapter of the American Cancer Society how to do stuff in the laboratory. And she had this Colonel Philip Doyle looking over her shoulder as part of a project.
So they're trying to find the young, bright minds, and they see her data and like, whoa.
That's right. She can prove that she's giving cancer to mice in 7 days. What she's doing is roasting them with radiation to lower their immune systems. Then she's putting them in
TSA.
In chambers, smoke chambers, where she's pumping cigarette smoke in there. So she's overexposing them to cigarette smoke at the same time she's lowering their immune system, and she's getting back cancer tumors in 7 days. And nobody up at NCI is able to do it that fast. So they realize that they have an asset who's too young to even be caught, because nobody would believe she could do all this stuff. And they bring her up that summer. They don't waste any time. They bring her up that summer up to the Roswell Park Cancer Institute up in Buffalo, New York, and they have her work in Dr. Moore's lab. He's in charge of the entire thing, and they train her specially to handle cancer-causing viruses, okay, because they have questions they want to ask that they don't want to tell the public they're asking, like, will radiation from X-ray machines trigger cancer in the people with the cancer-causing virus in it from the polio vaccine? I mean, that's a huge question, because that threatens the whole use of radiation and X-ray in American medicine. And they have her doing those research.
Oh, a binary weapon. You've got the cancer. Now you get the radiation and activates it.
That's right. And they want to know if that works without asking it in public. And Judy's got enough evidence to show that she was doing that research with human melanoma cells and radiation, and those documents are in this Me and Lee book. So the first 5 chapters of this is all about Judy's cancer background. She doesn't get into the Lee Oswald subject until 1963, when she gets a phone call from Dr. Oshner that says, Judy, how would you like to skip the last 2 years of college and start medical school in the fall? We'll pay your tuition, your room and board, give you a stipend, and you don't have to finish college.
My dad didn't have to finish UT. We
just have one little project we need you to do this summer, and you'll be working with that world-famous physician, Dr. Mary Sherman. And that's what the offer is. So she accepts the offer from Oshner and goes to New Orleans, and she is intercepted. She's there early. She calls Oshner, and he's out of town. She calls Mary Sherman. She's out of town. They send somebody in to intercept her, to hang on to her, to make sure she's safe. They send in an ex-Marine by the name of Lee Harvey Oswald, who does that. And
stay there. I got to hear about this. A little over a year. And we are back now into hour number 2. We have the researcher and amazing investigative journalist who's written 2 books that, from my own separate research, completely check out with the facts. And it's Edward T. Haslam, Dr. Mary's Monkey, How the Unsolved Murder of a Doctor, a Secret Laboratory in New Orleans, and Cancer-Causing Monkey Viruses are linked to Lee Harvey Oswald, the JFK assassination, and emerging global epidemics. And then he also has that book forwarded by the JFK Grand Poobah expert, Jim Mars, former crime reporter with the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, first person to teach a college course on JFK. Then you have Me and Lee, How I Came to Know, Love, and Lose Lee Harvey Oswald. And that's Judith Very Baker, with an afterword by Jim Mars. Now, Jim Mars will be with us for the full hour, but I wanted to have some crossover here, and I'm kind of springing this on him here. We're going to get into the world banking situation, the globalism out in the open, the TSA, all those other issues with Jim. But in this little short segment, 12-minute segment we've got now, I wanted to have him specifically bring up points because there's so much that are in these books. And so these two can basically have a discussion here about it. Jim, why are these books, Dr. Mary's Monkey and Me and Lee, so important?
Oh, well, that's an easy one, Alex. Number one, once you understand about the adulteration of the polio vaccine back in the 50s, then you'll begin to understand why there's been such an upsurge in the cancer rate. So this is a story that affects millions of people. I mean, this actually impacts the public. All right, not some celebrity news that who cares except the people involved. And the second thing is it also rips open the incredible, tangled, and darkly woven tapestry behind the Kennedy assassination and shows you the interconnections between CIA and FBI intelligence agencies, the military, secret laboratories, secret biochemical warfare testing, the war against Castro, and what role Lee Harvey Oswald played in all this. He was not just some lone schnook off the street. And if you'll read Ed's two books, Dr. Mary's Monkey and Me and Lee, you will find out not only what Lee Harvey Oswald was actually up to when he was in New Orleans in the summer of 1963, but how he connects into this matrix of powerful and violent groups that were behind the Kennedy assassination.
Bottom line, who was Lee Harvey Oswald?
He was a low-level intelligence agent, probably picked up when he went in the Marines. Actually, I remember his mother, oh, excuse me, I remember his mother, Marguerite, telling me that one day when he was in junior high school, he came home with a military officer. And this military officer told him, hey, Lee's a sharp kid, and he's a self-motivator, a self-starter, thinks for himself. He said, just the kind of guy we need. So I think they had him tagged all the way back to junior high school, and they groomed him. He went in the Marines, and there are gaps in his military records where he probably underwent intelligence training, probably started off with the Office of Naval Intelligence, considering that the Marines are part of the Navy. And then it was probably passed along to the CIA, and then there's a lot of evidence to show that by the time of the assassination, he probably was working for military intelligence and CIA. They all had their hooks in him, and including accepting money as an FBI informant. So he was not just some guy off the street, but I think the evidence, if it was all presented to the public, would clearly show he probably did not shoot the president.
Sure. I mean, it's elementary that he's at a super secret U-2 spy base in Japan. He goes over to Russia, marries a wife, supposedly gets in bed with the KGB, and then they just let him right back into the United States. And then he lives with a family of white Russians. For those that don't know what that means, it's not a drink with vodka in it. That was anti-communist forces that got kicked out, during that big war with the Bolsheviks. I mean, it's ridiculous. Ed, your take on Lee Harvey Oswald?
Well, in New Orleans, he is part of this underground medical laboratory. He plays a operational support role. He is Judy's babysitter. She is the asset they need to perfect the weapon. And he is in the middle of it. Now, Judy and Lee both